Hey, good morning. Welcome to Shields and Arrows, where we defend the faith, the family, the fellowship. I'm Pastor Mark Baze. Now, we are going to be discussing an interesting conversation that's going on the internet. And mostly I'm talking about X. And it also has to do with a recent interview with a internet celebrity and some of the conversations surrounding masculinity. Now, I have talked about this before, and you can find a number of our episodes on Shields and Arrows about how there's no men in the church, and church is not a place that is a very welcoming environment. I've done sermons on the matter. If you want to look on my YouTube channel or Worshipify page, you'll find the sermon, Our Churches Are Emasculated. I've talked about all that before, and it's not like this is groundbreaking stuff. But the conversation that's going on right now is surrounding an individual named Andrew Tate. Now, I've not watched anything of his that has not been in the form of being reported by somebody else. So whether it's Fox News, which I don't know if I've ever seen Fox News run one, but the Daily Wire certainly has, and a few other different news and media pages and sites and profiles have reported on things he says. Now, apparently, this Andrew Tate is kind of a phenomenon with young men. Now, obviously, you can tell I'm not one of those because I really don't know that much about him. I think he's British. I'm pretty sure he's British, but he kind of lives all over the place, I guess. He, for a lack of any other term, he has made most of his money by engaging in a very degraded type of business. Not drugs, as far as I know. More of the, what is the word that I could use that is appropriate? Use your imagination, okay? And exploiting women and different things like that. But somehow he's managed to brand himself in the past several years as the example of masculinity, of being an alpha male. That's terminology that you may or may not be familiar with, right? But the idea is the alpha male is he's the star football player. He is the strongest guy in the gym. He's the cool guy. He is the James Bond, right? And that's what young men want to gravitate towards. Nobody wants to be the beta male, and that's also terminology used. Beta males are just followers. They get bullied, beat up, pushed around, all of those things. And so Andrew Tate presents himself as, the alpha male and just follow my program. He has something called like Tate University. I don't know exactly what it's called, or Alpha University. I have no idea. Some sort of scam to where you can pay a monthly subscription for access to videos and content that's supposed to teach you how to be an alpha male. Now, I am no Andrew Tate fan nor an Andrew Tate apologist in any way. I certainly don't agree or believe in his approach, and I think he's just trying to take advantage of the moment. He sees the opportunity to strike where the iron's hot, where there's a attack on masculinity right now. Young men are very, I guess the word that I would use, are disenfranchised because society has told them that they just need to get out of the way. They're toxic, and girl bosses need to be girl bossing. You know pretty much the whole story there. So this is where the discussion to open up and how it ventures into the realm of theology. There is a strong pushback against Andrew Tate in church. And once again, if you're thinking, why are we talking about this? This is not anything that I'm aware of. Just understand that there are a number of churches that are more online. I'll put it that way. They're more online. And it's because they're the more modern churches. They're not the traditional churches like mine. All right, the preacher doesn't get up, and he's probably not wearing regular fitting slacks, a collared shirt, and a sports coat. And he's definitely not preaching out of a King James Bible, and they're definitely not singing old hymns, right? I'm talking about the evangelical churches of today, okay? The popular evangelical churches that do have young people that are attending because they've got all the programs and they've got all the different pastors and daycare for the kids, and, it's very convenient because you can be a member of the church but never feel obligated to really do much, right? Except for maybe the occasional volunteering on a, Thursday night. Now, those churches that are made up of a younger demographic, okay, the millennials, the Gen Zers, what have you. Is that right? It goes millennial, then Gen Z. What about Gen X? Which one's Gen X? I don't know. I get confused. But the point is, there is an awareness of this individual, Andrew Tate. And there's strong pushback against, hey, we don't want that kind of masculinity getting into our churches. Because his whole point is, he's very much that women should be submissive to men. Now, I will say there's a biblical way to view that, but his approach is not based on biblical values. It's just all power, right? Men need to have the power. The women need to just subject themselves to the men without any regard to what that man stands for or his values or his leadership. And so justifiably, you could say there is a strong pushback against that kind of masculinity in churches. We don't want the toxic masculinity, the masculinity that's disrespectful to women, infiltrating our congregations. The issue is, and I believe it was Isaac Botkin. Isaac Botkin is a really sharp guy. If you have not ever heard of T-Rex arms, I'm giving you a lot of online things right now, but you're smart people because you're smart enough to tune in to listen to me on YouTube. Let me introduce some things to you. T-Rex Arms is a company out of Tennessee. They make American products, American-made products. They started out as a holster company, but they make a lot of other stuff. Now, they do focus on mostly firearms, general preparedness, medical kits, things of that nature, okay? Isaac Botkin is the brother of Lucas Botkin. Lucas Botkin is the founder of the company. Isaac is incredibly brilliant, very, very smart guy. I really think that if I could sit down and talk to Isaac, or maybe somebody who's a little bit more experienced than me, maybe Dr. White, had a sit-down conversation with Isaac Botkin, he could probably come to the view of right division quite easily. He didn't grow up around it, and also I don't think he's even been exposed to really anybody who has those views. He does follow me on X, though, I will note, which is quite an honor. Isaac Botkin says something quite profound, I think, on the matter of Andrew Tate. And if you are having trouble just with the idea of Andrew Tate, as far as this is an, faceless person you've never heard of, picture, I guess, the cartoonish Bluto, I guess you could say, on Popeye. I mean, just picture a very much He-Man woman hater kind of persona, I suppose you could say. A disrespecter of women, not the traditional chivalrous masculinity that we want to instill in our young boys. But Isaac Botkin made this observation talking about Andrew Tate, that it would be a mistake for churches to, in his words, and I believe I'm quoting him correctly here, throw the baby out with the bathwater. Now, Isaac Botkin is no fan of Andrew Tate either, but what he's trying to say is, listen, there is a reason why young men are interested in Andrew Tate. Andrew Tate is all about being strong, being confident, working out, being successful. He's got nice cars. He poses in pictures with all sorts of women. And There is a fact that young men are drawn to the idea of being rich, successful, physically fit, and appealing to the ladies, right? I mean, that's why James Bond is successful, people, okay? James Bond is just kind of the male fantasy, if you will, okay? And his point is churches do not need to cut themselves off at the knees by reacting to Andrew Tate's, not even so much his himself as an individual, but the things about Andrew Tate that are appealing to young men. And I think that's where the mistake could come in. It is okay for young men to be driven and determined. And that is an amazing thing that I think we all need to open up our eyes and realize has been, I would say, to a degree, discouraged and repressed in our modern society. If you watch a commercial on TV, or if you see an ad that is on the internet, and it's especially concerning matters of education, medicine, engineering, college of any kind, far and away, the target is young ladies, okay? They're trying to, empower women for them to go and pursue these careers, for them to be successful, for them to be powerful, for them to make money, and all of those things. Now, I've never been against women being able to go out and support themselves. Now, I will say, I believe a lot of women have been made miserable because they've been told that their purpose and meaning is going to be found in their careers. And so they buy into that lie. And then they spend all their years dedicated to working long hours and climbing the social status ladder because they're told that complete and total self-reliance is going to bring them the most fulfillment in life, and then they turn around and now they don't have any children, or maybe not even married because they never had time for it, and leads to quite a miserable life later on. So, with that being said, the major push in academics, the major push by so many corporations is we want to empower women. And guess who gets left behind? Young men. And young men are then told that, well, you just need to kind of get out of the way. It's time for the girls to have the power and have the say, and they're going to be your boss, and they're going to be making the big bucks. And so a lot of young men feel disenfranchised, like there's something wrong with them, that it's bad for them to want to be successful. It's bad for them to want to be leaders, and it's bad for them to want to be in charge and have determination and drive and all of those things. And Andrew Tate's coming along and saying, no, it's not wrong. You're just being lied to. You should be driven. Young men should want to be leaders, and you can be leaders if you will just go and grab life by the horns. That is very appealing. That's a message that young men want to hear. And let me say, I think that in and of itself, now dissociate that from all the other things that Andrew Tate represents or any other bad male role model may bring to the table. That concept is very, very good. We should want our young men to be driven. We should want our young men to be determined. I should want my son to be motivated to be the provider, the protector of his family, okay? What is it going to look like to bring that kind of masculinity into our churches? I will say, I want churches to have sound doctrine. I really do. I wish every church understood that our gospel and what God is doing today is very distinct and different from what He's done in the past. And therefore, they will not make the mistake of trying to incorporate and add a ton of passages of Scripture that don't belong to us, because it creates confusion. For one, it adds legalism into our salvation. Now it's not justified by faith alone, but justified by faith and whatever ordinances that the church decrees. But also, it could give us a false idea of how we're to conduct ourselves in this world when we read the Beatitudes, blessed are the meek, or the passages that Jesus talks about when a man smites you on the right cheek, offer him the left also. We need to understand the times we live in for us to understand how we are to conduct ourselves. So perhaps, maybe, the truth is we will solve so many of these issues with our churches if we can get sound doctrine, and I do think there's a lot of truth to that. But I will say, I think a path forward that is a little bit more quickly obtained, okay, a little bit more quickly obtained, is at least encouraging and reestablishing masculinity back in churches. Now, this is where a lot of churches are going to be mistaken. There are churches out there that believe that they do have masculinity in their church. There are a group of men who are in the church, and they may even be the leaders of the church. They may, to a degree, be the leaders of their families. But their level of masculinity, I would say, is lacking to a degree. Let me refer back to a video I did a long time ago. Fathers need to be dangerous. There is the masculinity that you dress like a man, I guess. Not that some of these men in these churches are dressing all that masculine. A lot of them dress like frat boys with their skinny jeans and V-neck shirts. But to a degree, at least they are married to a woman, and they may have children, and they may watch football, and they may even like to, go on the annual men's retreat, and there they may do a little bit of fishing, or they may do a little bit of hiking, things like that, right? Well, I'm just going to tell you this. That is not enough, all right? That is not good enough. The masculinity that we need in today's time to really defend the faith, the family, and the fellowship is not, oh yeah, we are straight men and we go fishing sometimes, or we are straight men and we'll all get together to go throw axes at the local axe throwing, whatever you call those, game place in town. I don't know. I've never been to an axe throwing place. I've thrown axes, but it's been outside at trees at my house. The masculinity that we need is we need men in the church who are driven to protect and provide. Not just provide. I think there's too many that are just trying to be providers. What about protectors? And they need to be physically capable of doing swift and brutal violence to those that would threaten to harm their children or their wife. That's the kind of masculinity I'm talking about. And that's the conversation that these churches are not wanting to have. The men in so many of these churches, because to a degree their doctrine is off, they take the shrewd as serpent, harmless as a dove passage and follow that to the nth degree. And what that makes them is it makes them soft, weak men. They believe it's not their place to be prepared to take a life if necessary. And let me say, I hope and pray that the day never comes that I will ever have to do it. I can still carry every day. Every day. If you see me out in public, it's a guarantee. Okay, I'm just going to tell you right now, it's a guarantee I am concealed carrying. I've been concealed carrying since I was able to do so, okay? I took the test to be able to conceal carry before I was even of the age to conceal carry, because you can take the test when you turn 18, and then when you're 21, you can apply to get your license. And that was back when you had to get a license. Now Oklahoma has constitutional carry, and you can just carry no matter what, as long as you're not a convicted felon, things like that. So I've been carrying for 9 years now, just about, and I've never had to use my gun, and I'm so thankful. And I never want to. I never want to have to take a human life. I never want to have to inflict harm upon somebody else. But I am prepared to do so if necessary. Now, let me say to all those men out there who think it's enough to say, okay, well, I guess I better protect my family, and then throw a pistol in their pocket and then go to church. No, that's not the whole thing either. Are you physically fit? And this is a major issue that I'm seeing amongst men. If you are not physically able to carry your wife, now, I'm talking to the men that should be physically capable of doing so. I understand. I mean, you get to a certain age and maybe you can't do the things you once did. I'm talking to what I would say the fighting age male, okay? If you cannot do those things, if you cannot carry your children, if you cannot do push-ups, if you cannot run, you are not doing your job. That is what I'm getting at the heart of this matter of masculinity. And so many churches have this skewed view of what a masculine male is supposed to be, because we have taken on the hippie Jesus view has worked its way into even just the typical Baptist or evangelical church. And I use Baptist because Baptists often don't have any solid belief, so they just represent the standard evangelical church. The difference between a non-denominational church and a Baptist church is often just the name on the sign, or maybe the Baptist church may still have hymnals, like hymnals in the pews, where the non-denominational churches went ahead and done away with them. The churches today are not masculine, and they need to open up their eyes and understand that. They need to realize it. Now, once again, they've been taught bad doctrine because they are convinced, they believe that the biblical man is a man who is not a dangerous man, not a man who is willing to do violence if necessary, because they try to apply the words of Christ in the Gospels to our age today, when in reality the words of Christ were very much for the Jews preparing to receive and enter the kingdom. With that being said, I will note that nowhere did Jesus say that you should not protect your children if there is a threat against them, or protect your wife. It was really just, if a man strikes you on the cheek, turn to him the other also. That's about the extent of the matter. I don't think Jesus ever advocated for a man to allow his child to be harmed by somebody else and do nothing about it. But this is going to be a long road for churches to get to that place. Now, there may be some churches that even believe what I've said. They would say, amen, yes, fathers need to be protectors, they need to be prepared. But what are they doing? Are they actually trying to prepare themselves? You have a responsibility to prepare yourself mentally, physically, and as well as having the tools and equipment necessary. It's the world we live in. If this was 2,000 years ago, we would have been carrying swords. But now we carry handguns that are capable of reaching out to quite some distance if we train and are proficient enough. There is a gentleman who I do think is doing a good job to a large degree of promoting good biblical masculinity. Not that he's a right divider, unfortunately. I wish he was, but I just can't expect too much out of our people that we may see on the internet, just because a lot of people have not come to understand rightly dividing the word of truth. They've had so much bad doctrine that has been presented to them, it's kind of skewed their view. But I want to point out to you gentleman called John Lovell. John Lovell is a former Army Ranger. He does firearms training and things like that. And he's almost a borderline pastor now. But he teaches firearms training. I've been to one of his courses. He himself was not there personally. Paul and Sam, the others that he has with him. John Lovell is here in the center, and then you have Paul on the left, Sam on the right. And then here's all a list of these different courses that you can take in the country to be able to train. Isaac Bakken, his proposal was, we need masculinity, but it needs to be more the masculinity that John Lovell presents as opposed to Andrew Tate. And I fully agree. John Lovell encourages men to love their wives, love their children, and love them enough that they are willing to prepare themselves to protect and to provide. And that really is what we want. And churches are going to need to start embracing this, but here's the roadblock. Not only is bad theology going to be a barrier, our churches have to stop being so emotional. That is a major problem. Our churches, if you just look at the vast majority of them, they are driven by emotion and not doctrine. And as long as emotions drive the church, is the controlling factor, you are not going to have masculinity take charge in the church as it's supposed to be. Because the truth is, masculinity and leadership cannot coexist with blinding emotionalism. I'm not saying that emotions don't have a role. The emotions, the love that I have for my wife and my children, they are very powerful and they can be great as motivators. But I can't make my decisions and I can't develop my doctrine through emotion. In baseball is such a mental game. And there are other sports that are mental games as well. But baseball is very telling. You cannot play purely on emotion in baseball. Okay? You can't do it. The skill required, the mental toughness required is too technical. All right? I discovered that it is somewhat different when it comes to football. Football, you actually are able to allow some emotions to work in. I mean, football, they will almost encourage you to play with emotion. And that is because, to a degree, it's a very physical game. Having your emotions hyped up, your adrenaline going, certainly may help to not feel some of the battering that you take during the course of the game. But also, the technical degree of all the different scenarios that goes on in baseball requires too much mental processing to just allow emotions to fuel you. You have to keep your head. When we are handling something as important as the Word of God, you have to keep your head. You cannot just start interpreting the Bible, reading the Bible, applying the Bible on just pure emotion. And yet, if you go to so many churches supposedly led by the men, we've got masculine men, leaders of the church, fathers. If you listen to them preach, if you listen to them do Bible study, if you listen to them sing hymns, it's all emotionally driven and it's not doctrinally driven. in order for churches to really get back to a strong masculine place of culture and mentality, you've got to start acting like a man. And you've got to start studying the Bible and not just being fueled by emotion. You've got to start being fueled by reason, sound mind, dedication to study. And that really is what it takes. So I'm glad that there's this conversation going on about masculinity in churches. It's a conversation that needs to be had. I'm going to continue to preach it for a long time, that our churches need to be more masculine again. It's got to be the right kind of masculinity. And it's got to be real masculinity, not the masculinity that, is a facade of, yeah, we're men, I have a beard, we go throw axes on the weekend. No, it's a lifestyle. It's not something that you do occasionally. Masculinity is not a costume or an outfit you put on. You've got to live that life. And I'm not saying I'm the perfect example, because there's aspects of masculinity that goes far beyond just being physically prepared. You've got to be a good leader. And being a good leader is hard, because sometimes I'm not a good leader. I don't always keep my head like I should. I don't always guide and direct my family the best way I can. It's not easy. I'm not saying that you're going to be perfect at it, but it's got to be the target that we're striving towards. It's got to be what we're marching towards. And so I hope the churches can reclaim it. All right, talking about not being led by emotion and using our heads to approach the Word of God, you should approach Blue Baptist Church on March 28th through the 30th and join us for our 2025 Bible Conference, addressing common Bible study mistakes. I've been advertising this thing for a while now, and we are getting close, people. All right, we are 2 months out. All right, essentially. So please, if you're able to join us, continue to stay tuned. Let me know if there's anything that you may need. There is the possibility, and this is something that I want you to spread the word, okay? So everybody listen very closely. There is a cabin that is at Lake Texoma. Lake Texoma is probably 35 minutes or so from the church. And if you would be interested in staying in this cabin, there's a number of beds there. Let us know, and we may be able to rent it for you. If you would like to stay there, because it's certainly going to be cheaper. There's a kitchen there. You could cook. Reach out to me if that's something you're interested in, or if you are otherwise just interested in staying in a hotel or maybe trying to stay with a sponsor, be sure to let me know, okay? But that is a possibility. If you're interested in that possibility of the cabin at the lake, once again, it's meant to hold a number of people. It's not like a cabin with a few bedrooms. Let me know. Either text me, send me an email, so I can start getting an idea of kind of what people are wanting to do and what they are thinking, okay? All right. Now, Trump's confirmation hearings are going to begin. They're beginning with Pete Hegseth, and hopefully he gets confirmed. He will be the Secretary of Defense. I think he will do a good job. I hope that he does not back off on women in combat roles. He really was strong about that a few years ago. Now that he's been in the public eye, he's kind of, toned that down a little bit. I get it. You're trying to, be appealing. You're trying to avoid a whole lot of controversy. There's some things, though, that you don't need to be worried about the controversy. You just got to stand for what you believe in, and I think that's an important matter. Any society or country that would send women to die in a war zone in a combat role, I think is morally wrong. We've got to get back to a biblical view of these things. Men should be the protectors, right? Going back to that matter of masculinity. So we're going to continue to see how Trump's confirmation hearings go for his cabinet members. I'm assuming most of them, if not all of them, will get approved. And I hope that Trump is able to hit the ground running and get some things done. He needs to get a lot done in very short order, especially before the 2026 elections. And then everything is, possibly turned back on its head. Maybe the Democrats take the House, maybe they take the Senate, which would certainly lock down Trump's presidency to what he could accomplish. But he can still do some good, but we've got to get a lot done these first 2 years. Do not waste them like we did last time. We've got to get a lot done. Not that we entirely wasted it, but there was meat left on the bone that I wish Trump would have accomplished. Now, other than that, we do know that the California fires are still going. This just goes to show you, no matter how advanced we are as a society, we're still going to have disasters. That's one of those things I've tried to stress. It seems like we get so arrogant in our own minds, humanity does, that we believe we will never be faced with the consequences of bad decisions ever again. That is just simply not true. We can absolutely make a mess of things if we mishandle and do not make wise choices, make wise decisions. So I hope that the ones in charge, Gavin Newsom, Karen Bass, all of those liberal politicians, I hope people remember. But the issue is people are fickle and they have short memory. So for everybody who is extremely optimistic that Gavin Newsom is done and we won't have to worry about him being a Democrat candidate in 2028 for president, don't cash your check yet, okay? People can easily forget things, and it's a long ways. It's weird. It's all very short, because if you think about, Trump as far as things that he needs to get done, 4 years is a very short amount of time to get stuff done that we would like to see him accomplish. And yet at the same time, 4 years is a very long time for politicians. 4 years is long enough for people to forget about Gavin Newsom's terrible handling of COVID, his terrible handling of the fires. And so just do not fool yourselves, okay? We may not see the last of him. Politics is a funny, funny game. Now, other than that, I have not found anything in the news to be all that exciting to me. I often rely on you to be giving me updates and information and insight, and you usually do a good job. But right now, we're just really waiting to see what's going to happen as far as Trump's candidacy. But I will say, I did get this from a friend sent to me. The Prestonwood Baptist Church in Texas. Let's just look at the article. The Baptist Report. Can't make the trip to Jerusalem? Prestonwood Baptist Church in Texas now has its own Western Wall. And here it is. My house will be a house of prayer for all nations. Mark 11:17. And then Mike Huckabee is standing right there. He's looking a little bit older now. Prestonwood Baptist pastor Jack Graham is joined by Mike Huckabee in the unveiling of a facsimile, right? You saw that word, facsimile. I'm never going to pretend like I have the world's largest vocabulary, okay? If it's not in the King James and I haven't read it somewhere else in my life, facsimile, whatever you want to call it, of the Western Wall, it's basically it's a copy of it, a replica of the Western Wall at the church to encourage prayer. The article goes on to say, they did it to me again. Somebody tell me what that word is. Please spell it out for me as if I am a clueless fifth grader. And I need you to tell me what that means. A facsimile of the Western Wall in Jerusalem was unveiled October 6th at Prestonwood Wood Baptist Church in Plano, Texas, by longtime pastor Jack Graham. I mean, Plano's right down the road from me. I mean, Ken can spit and hit Plano. It's not very far away at all. It says it was a very special day here in Prestonwood because we are launching a month of prayer in the month of October. And with that, this beautiful wall that is like a, there it is, facimal. All right, I'm going to Google it because I've got to see how you pronounce this word. I feel like I'm talking to Dr. White. He always likes to use words that I don't know. How do you pronounce it? Yeah, facimal. So facimal is how you pronounce it. Yeah, a copy or reproduction. Why can't we just use that? Facimal sounds better, I guess. Is like a facsimile, really, of the Western Wall in Jerusalem. People can come here and pray, leave prayer notes and scriptures, and we're opening this up to everyone, said Graham in a video posted on X/Twitter. Graham was joined by Mike Huckabee, former Southern Baptist pastor, governor, and U.S. presidential candidate. For the announcement, Huckabee spoke earlier at the church. I've been there many, many times. It's always an incredible place, a very reverent place, but it's a place where one can place a prayer that you write and put it into the crevice, and we can do the same thing here. A lot of people will never be able to go to Jerusalem, but be able to pray for the peace of Jerusalem and to do it right here in Prestonwood. It's just a brilliant idea, and I thank God for it, said Huckabee. Graham added, it's a great idea because it gives us an opportunity to connect with the people of Israel, and since October 7th of last year, our church has been engaged in terms of giving in support of Israel and to pray. The Western Wall, also known as the Wailing Wall, is a 187-foot high section of the ancient wall built by Herod the Great as the retaining wall of the Temple Mount complex. Situated on the western side of the Temple Mount in the Old City of Jerusalem, the oldest layers of the wall were constructed by Herod the Great between 20 BC and 19 BC during the remodeling of the Second Jewish Temple, according to GotQuestions.org, so you know that's going to be true. Absolutely. It's interesting to me. Christianity does have a fascination with Jerusalem. Now, I would love one day to be able to go to Israel. I'll probably wait a little while, maybe. Things cool down a little bit, but I would love to be able to go. I would love to see the Sea of Galilee, to know that this is where Christ was. He walked on it. He probably fished in it. I mean, there's many amazing things I'd love to see. I'd love to go to Jerusalem and to see the very city where Christ was wrongly tried and crucified, and where he was resurrected. This replica of the Western Wall that is put up here at this Baptist church, I'm just not a big fan of it. The Western Wall in Jerusalem should not have any special doctrinal meaning to us. It's historically amazing, and we do know that one day the temple will be rebuilt. But the Spirit of God does not dwell at the Temple Mount or at the Wailing Wall, the Western Wall. I am worried that Christianity is going to, like it's already done, continue to incorporate more things that were Old Testament Israel into our practices. And at what point do our practices or just our traditions or routines start to become almost theological? Because there's going to be people who have a mystical aspect to it. I mean, and churches do this with a number of things, not just this facsimile of the Western Wall, but facsimile. I think I recognize that word now. Facsimile. Because it looks like a simile, a comparison of two. A literary tool that compares two different things using the words like or as. So facsimile. Why can't we just use copy representation? Anyways, hope y'all feel good. Y'all are smarter than me. I've never claimed I was smarter than you to begin with. We do this with a lot of things. There's something mystical about coming forward to pray. Have you noticed that in churches? That the preacher will call somebody to come forward to pray as if for some reason bowing down up by the altar is a more righteous prayer or a greater act of obedience or humility before God. You see churches do that all the time. They place a great emphasis on coming forward to pray at the altar. I've never liked it. Even when I was younger, I didn't really like it. It always irked me. It always bothered me. I don't see the Western Wall construction in this church to be really much different than that. I'm not going to say it's any less, or I'm not going to say it's any more, odd than making a big emphasis about coming down and praying at the altar. It's really, I think it creates more confusion. Maybe does more harm than good for people, because somehow praying here at this wall is giving us greater access to God, or it's a more serious prayer, it's a more fervent prayer. Y'all are also proud of me for finally getting facsimile. I grow my vocabulary every day. I'll never get it wrong now. I mean, that's the thing. Once you see it once and you get it wrong, that's how you really know. I mean, you learn most from your mistakes, trust me. And I probably don't have to tell you that. You all understand it. I'm not a fan. I'm not going to sit here and say that they're committing idolatry, because they're not worshiping the wall necessarily. But why do we do this? I feel like we put stumbling blocks in front of ourselves. Churches do this when they add a very mystical type thing. And I do think that's what it is. I think it is kind of mystical, the idea of, oh yes, we're going to pray at the Western Wall. We're going to write down our prayers and we're going to put them in the cracks of the wall, as if somehow that's a prayer that is going to be considered higher priority by God. I just don't know why we put these things in here and needlessly trip ourselves up, adding complication. Especially, for me, it's not a doctrinal issue. Or no, let me not put it that way. For me, it's not a stumbling block, because I know that's just a wall. Just as I know coming down forward to pray is not any more significant an act. It doesn't make you more Christian. You don't have to walk down the aisle to be saved. Those things are not a stumbling block for me. Those are not an issue for me. Our good friend Robert Craig was talking about idol worship in his one of his recent YouTube videos. Go check out his YouTube channel. And he just has some good, 15, 20-minute little lessons. He was talking about idolatry and meat being offered to idols. And if you're aware of it, then be mindful of it, because it could be a stumbling block to a weaker brethren. I see this this wall, as well as our view of the altar. Rick Allen even mentioned prayer circles. Those are all good examples. They're potential stumbling blocks, because we get this idea that somehow that wall is more significant. It has The presence of God is there. It represents something. It means something. It accesses something that you just wouldn't have otherwise. Just like the altar when you come forward at church to pray, or at least a preacher will try to get you to come forward to pray. I will say, the Western Wall replica that they have at that church is just as, it's just as spiritual as the Western Wall in Jerusalem. How about that? Meaning that at this age, in this dispensation, there ain't anything going on at that Temple Mount, guys. Not doctrinally. One day things will be fulfilled, okay? One day the Word of God is going to be fulfilled and there will be a temple at that Temple Mount once again. I promise you, okay? I believe it. I believe it. I promise you it will be rebuilt. But right now, sound like an okie, ain't nothing going on there, people. Your prayers that you pray when you're sitting in your vehicle, I don't know, blessing your Brahms burger and milkshake, that has just as much access to God as that facsimile of the wall there in that Baptist church. And how many people know that? Are they communicating that with people? If I go back and I read that article, are they being straightforward with it? Because if we consider Huckabee's words at the church, I've been there many, many times. It's always an incredible place, a very reverent place. Is that reverent? The people are reverent? I imagine the people are probably reverent there. But it's a place where one can place a prayer that you write and put it into the crevice. And we can do the same thing there. A lot of people will never be able to go to Jerusalem, but be able to pray for the peace of Jerusalem. And praying for the peace of Jerusalem. We want peace. I would love for there to be world peace. Wouldn't that be great? But this does go back to a not knowing the times. That somehow God right now is working, dealing with Israel. I think it sets the precedent there for that potential confusion. So that's my thoughts on it. The facsimile of the Western Wall. How about that? Are y'all proud of me now? Dr. Campbell says, what is your opinion of Ryan Walters? Those are tough. Those are tough questions to answer. Here's my opinion. I think he's got aspirations for governor. I think he likely sees his role as superintendent as, a rung on the ladder. Ryan Walters is the Oklahoma State superintendent. I think he is probably conservative for the most part in his worldview. The thing is, people on the outside, and by outside I mean people that aren't in Oklahoma, they look and see at what he's done. He's, made the Bible a part of the curriculum. The posting of the Ten Commandments in the classrooms. Here's the thing. I agree with the Bible being a part of the curriculum. I think it's a good thing. I think that it's absurd to try to give an American history or even world history without having the Bible in it, because it's I think it is the oldest historical document we have, plain and simple. I think that probably the record of Genesis is older than anything else there is. Code of Hammurabi, Egyptian hieroglyphics, you name it. It's the most foundational documents. We can have access to the writings of Aristotle and Plato, and yet we can't access the Word of God. So I agree with those things. I agree that the Ten Commandments were principles that our nation was founded upon. The idea of the law being given, if you look at the top of the Supreme Court, on one side you've got Moses sitting there center stage with holding the two tablets. I have no problem with that. The issue is, I feel like Ryan Walters has tried to do too much and really just aiming for political points. He really rushed the implementation of the Bible in schools in a way that schools just really were scrambling to try to incorporate it into their curriculum. If you're going to do it, you want it done right. I feel like it was rushed. I feel like he was just trying to get ahead of the curve, trying to make the news, get some interviews, get some points with the right people. I know that he's big on school choice and allowing, really being a big proponent of, from what I understand, prioritizing the larger schools to a degree over some of the smaller schools. That's always been a battle in Oklahoma. I'm just going to say my opinion of him, and if he'd like to reach out and talk to me and convince me otherwise, he can. I'm not saying he's a bad man. I'm not saying that he's a bad husband. I'm not saying he's a bad father. I don't know anything about his personal life, okay? So I'm not speaking to any of that. I'm just talking about purely Ryan Walters, the superintendent of Oklahoma, my opinion of him in that role. I think he's a politician. I think he's trying to climb the ladder. I think he has other aspirations. I don't think he plans on stopping there. And so there's a few boxes that he wants to check to say that I've tried to do this, or I've accomplished this, I've done this, I've implemented this. Like a lot of people that are in, state office, government offices. My opinion is there's not a lot of people that are in politics for the sake of being in politics. They're there to accomplish something, right? They're there to accomplish something. So how's that for kind of maybe a political answer? But my honest assessment, because there's just a lot that I don't know about him. All right. Well, we are at almost an hour now. I'm going to go ahead and cut y'all loose today. Thank y'all for listening to me rant, and hopefully we're going to solve some of the world's problems. But no matter what, no matter how difficult it may get, we are not going to stop defending the faith, the family, and the fellowship, because this is Shields and Arrows, and that's exactly what we're here to do. Thank you for joining me today. Tomorrow we'll be back for more. I'll remind you, Theology Thursday is coming up. We do have the Facebook group, Right Dividers Defending the Faith. If you would like to post a question there for Theology Thursday, I'll get it recorded for you, okay? We'll see you tomorrow. Thank you all so much.